start my timer in, let's see, let me set the timer for 20 minutes. I gotta move it on up. Okay, I'll start the timer now.
So I'm focusing on fossils because that's what originally confirmed the model, and that's what came before genetics and molecular cellular studies. So that's where I start to confirm the model, and that should be proof enough. We can talk about cellular stuff, especially mutations. I really like that.
Sure. Now you say fossils confirmed the model, and you use the word "we" probably 500 times already in the discussion so far. We meaning you are part of this community that is doing this? Are you actually going out looking for fossils? Are you confirming the model? Because I hear you use the word "we" all the time. What do you mean by that? How do you include yourself in this group?
People who accept the scientific consensus.
So you claim,
or scientists in general.
So you claim the scientific consensus is that evolution is true. Was the scientific consensus before Darwin's day quite the opposite? Was it the consensus that there was a God who created things? Was that did Darwin go against the consensus of his day?
As far as I know, it wasn't a scientific consensus. It would have been a religious consensus, but there is really no consensus among religions. They can't even agree on their own holy book.
Well, I've got the right holy book. That's no question.
That's what they all say.
And you're convinced you've got the right scientific theory, and I don't think scientists even agree on that. And your numbers, 99.998%, are way off. Surveys show it's closer to like 60% of scientists believe in evolution without a God involved. I don't know where you got these numbers to impress people. But
I'm talking about life sciences, not just like strictly biology sciences.
Yeah, but again, surveys wouldn't prove anything. I think you could find if you took a survey in North Korea, everybody thinks Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is a wonderful guy. There would be, and I think if you Taylor went to your teacher and said, "Teacher, I don't believe evolution's true. It doesn't work," I bet they would flunk you out of the class and stop you from graduating. So of course that's going to be the consensus in modern science in America, because it's no different than North Korea where you have to believe in communism.
If I wrote that on my test, I would flunk out. But if I was just asking the teacher questions, they would answer them. And so this is why I say that you rely on a conspiracy, because, of course, North Korea is able to fudge its results because they have a government conspiracy oppressing all its people. So is there something oppressing scientists in the sciences?
Have you seen the movie Expelled by Ben Stein?
Yes. Several years ago, probably when it came out.
Yeah, I think you should watch that again and call some of the scientists who have been repressed because they don't support the party line of evolution.
I mean, I was in high school at the time, and it was pretty obvious to me what was going on.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, watch it one more time for me, please. Expelled by Ben Stein. It's excellent. There certainly is a consensus against teaching creation. There's obviously only two options. There is a creator or there isn't. If there's a creator, that would probably involve some responsibility on our part. Like, who is he? What does he want? Do we have to obey some rules? If evolution is true, like you claim, would you please tell the audience how you decide right from wrong? Is murder right or wrong? Is sex with your dog right or wrong? Is anything right or wrong? But before you start making a list of what's right and wrong, I would like to know how, based on your model, you decide right from wrong. How do you decide what's right, what's wrong on any topic? Where's your standard?
It's not based on evolution. It's based on the exact same thing your God would use to decide right from wrong, which is logic.
So you're borrowing Christian values to decide right from wrong?
No, logic is not a Christian value. But your God certainly be capable of perfect logic and perfect rationality. And I believe that if your God existed, which is not incompatible with evolution at all, that he would have perfect rationality, and that his rules for morality would be based on this perfect rationality.
Okay. Most states have laws against incest, fathers having sex with their daughters. If a father has an 8-year-old daughter who consents, would that be wrong? Should that father be arrested? Would you consider that wrong? Even though the state laws do say it's wrong, under your model, should it be wrong? I guess is what I'm asking. How do you decide? How do you decide if something should be wrong? Is it wrong for you to murder your neighbor and take away his stuff? If so,
Yes.
why? Why would it be wrong?
Yes, because a child cannot consent in the first place to sex. And basically, we can get into the nitty gritty, but this has nothing to do with evolution. So I'll sum it up for you. Good is essentially just freedom. So when you reduce someone else's freedom, you're doing bad.
So if the lion goes and eats the baby zebra, the lion thinks it's fine. The baby zebra doesn't appreciate it, nor does the mother zebra at all. Is that wrong? Or is that just nature? Or what's the difference between humans going to, take your neighbor's stuff, kill your neighbor, take over his house, and you got a bunch of free stuff? The lion did that with the zebra. Is there something different between humans and animals? Why do we have these rules like don't steal from your neighbor?
Yeah, because a lion is not a moral agent. It doesn't understand anything it's doing.
So are humans?
Sure, killing another animal, sure, you can call that evil. You can call that unfortunate, whatever. But it's just doing what it does. You can't hold it responsible. You might. We kill animals that harm people or too many other animals that are out of control. That's somewhat justice if you can look at it like that. But we don't hold them to the same standards because they're not capable of rational thought.
So is there something different between humans and animals? Does man have something no other animal has? A sense of right and wrong, a conscience, a soul, a spirit, whatever it is. Is there any difference between humans and animals? In our biology, I would think we probably would all agree. We both ingest food, digest it, get rid of waste, use energy. But is there anything spiritually or morally different from man and animals?
Well, we have a few gene deletions which cause expansions in brain activity. And so a more complex brain is able to handle more complex social situations. And so we see basic morality existing in monkeys and apes, but we just have a more complex social ability.
So we are simply more complex socially than monkeys and apes. When you die, what's going to happen to you, Taylor? Is there any part of you that's going to live on besides your offspring, if you have any? If you don't have any, doesn't matter. Is there any part of Taylor that's going to live beyond your death?
I imagine the same thing would happen, a similar thing to brain damage. So if I lose part of my memory from brain damage, if my entire brain is damaged, then I'm going to lose all of me.
So there's nothing more to life than eat, drink, and be merry, I guess. Can I summarize it that way for you?
If that's what you want, but we can figure out more things to do.
Okay.
Such as study life.
I love studying life. I've been a child in God's family for 50 years now. I was 16 when I gave my heart to the Lord, and my dad and mom both dad and brother both engineers. My mom and other brother both teachers. I love teaching. I love learning. I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth. The truth to me seems to indicate there had to be a designer for this. This is simply too complex.
Gentlemen, we have 10 minutes. You have a little more than 11 minutes left. I was encouraged to ask you to get the subject back to evolution, if you would. That's the subject of the debate. So
Okay.
morality might be another day. Excellent subject indeed. So let's try to keep it on evolution if we can, please.
Well, okay, that's what I'm just always curious. How does an evolutionist get his morality? Where does he get it from without borrowing it from Christian morals, But you're right, another topic. So what is the best evidence, Taylor, you would say that you have, what is the best evidence anybody can find to support this theory that humans and, say, pine trees are related? You do believe humans and pine trees are related, I'm sure, both eukaryotes or whatever. So what is the best evidence that any animal, besides your salamanders, which are still salamanders, is there anything better than that to show that you can change beyond the same kind?
The fact that this model is used to predict where and when fossils will occur, including fossils that we've never found before. And according to your definition, they're not the same kind of salamander anymore. So that's speciation.
Well, I agree. Speciation happens. That's our modern classification system. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, family, species, all that. So I agree that happens, but that's not. They're still the same kind. Go look at your own picture. They're both a salamander.
But not by your definition, because A and E cannot bring forth anymore.
True. They may have gotten to the point. Originally, though, they could bring forth. So is that variation within the salamanders you saw going around California, is that enough evidence to convince you that salamanders and pine trees have a common ancestor?
No, but we see changes in life in real time in the wild, and then we see changes occurring in the fossil record. And when we date those fossil records to different dates, and then we have a hypothesis. This model assumes that all these are related, and then we go and test that model to see if that assumption is accurate or not. That assumption was accurate because we were able to find almost everything we predicted.
There you go, using the we again. Can you give me a specific example of a fossil that was found in the right place that is considered a transition between different kinds of animals? What's been found?
Archaeopteryx was the first.
And are you aware of the controversy over Archaeopteryx? Was it just a bird?
It has both bird and dinosauric features.
Decided by who? Who decided it has these different features?
It has the same basic bone structure as a bird wing, except unfused finger bones. And it has feathers. And it looks like a bird.
And is there a possibility it was a bird? It had wings, it had feathers, it had hollow bones. Could it have been an unusual bird with teeth? There's a Panamanian hummingbird that has teeth in its mouth. Could it be it's just a bird with teeth and that's now gone extinct? How would you know Archaeopteryx was able to produce anything other than a baby Archaeopteryx?
Because it's more similar to dinosaurs in its skull structure and its overall body plan.
Well, the fact that it has dinosaur-like structures, that's like saying my car has motorcycle-like structures. It has a brake system, just like my motorcycle. Oh, therefore they're related. No, that's a good design feature. You want something to stop the vehicle. Brakes on a motorcycle, brakes on a bicycle, brakes on a car, on a train, on a jet. So the fact that it has similar features, you are interpreting to be evidence of relationship. I would interpret it to be evidence of a common designer for a common need. They both needed these features to live their life. We have two eyes, so we get binocular vision. So
that's an argument. That's an argument from personal incredulity because because it's just a guess and saying, well, it seems more likely to me. But we've actually tested our model. We found Archaeopteryx because we assumed that it would be a transition. It was found because of the model, meaning the model is accurate.
Well, I think you need to study some more on the actual Archaeopteryx and find out about them. I think many people have come to say that's nothing but just a bird with unusual features. There's also some evidence of some forgery with some of the fossils with Archaeopteryx, gluing the tail on, etc., with the different matrix behind it, the limestone matrix it was glued in being different. There's also evidence of a phenomena called where when you pack something between two layers of rock, as it decays, it'll be a capillary action, pulling little filaments out that look like hairs or feathers, when it's actually just capillary action common between two tightly pressed layers of anything. You can put a drop of water on a piece of paper, put another piece of paper on top real tight, and there'll be capillary action, draw it out into little lines around it. So there are those who take that position, that the feathers, that they say they're feathers on dinosaurs, are actually just simple capillary action as the fossil forms, or as the fossil decays, as the creature decays. But again, you're putting an awful lot of weight on fossils that are dead, that you can't prove had any children. You're claiming evolution happened in the past. Where's it happening today? What animal today is changing into something else? Or is it just coincidence that we've arrived? It doesn't go any further now. Where's evidence today happening?
Well, we've found fossils nesting with eggs, so we've confirmed that they've reproduced that way. Evolution today occurs, we've done it in the lab with algae, and we see it occurring speciation in ring species. So I want to know how the creationist model is scientific, because the evolutionary model follows the scientific method of the observations. We notice that things change over time. Small steps we've only confirmed. Then we have this hypothesis that these small steps add up. We tested that hypothesis. We were able to find specific evidence. We found a bird, half dinosaur in the date range that was predicted with the features that were predicted. So that confirms the model. And then we can repeat that experiment over and over and over and get more and more accurate results. So that is scientific. Whether evolution is true or not, that's following the scientific method.
Sure. The scientific method, if I understand it, and I taught science in high school 15 years, is you have observation, testing, experimentation. So let's do some experimentation. Crossbreed pick any animal you want. Pick your salamanders. You use all the laboratory experiments you want on these salamanders. could you produce a salamander with wings, do you think? Could you produce a salamander, anything other than a salamander? Could you change it into a recognizably different kind? Could you do that in the lab?
We've seen fish with wings. We've seen octopi with wings. We've
a salamander. You've seen octopi with wings?
It's called a blanket octopus.
And so you're going. How would you change your salamander into anything non-salamander, or has it just happened to reach the limit while we are alive today in the 21st century?
The same way as we breed features and through mutations. We can go over lots of different mutations that have created fairly large steps toward evolution, and we've already gone over seeing multicellular life evolve from single cellular life.
Well, I would disagree with that multicellular. Let's get back to that in a minute. But okay, would you agree a whole lot of money has been spent, especially in America, but in other countries too, trying to get faster and faster horses to win races? Kentucky Derby, for example. Would it be possible to ever breed wings on a horse? Do you think that could ever be done? They'd certainly win the Kentucky Derby if they had wings that could fly. There are some big animals that could fly, you know. So
you're not going to get it in 50 or 60 years.
You think they could get it in 10 million years? Get a horse with wings?
Why not?
Was that a yes? I couldn't hear what he said.
Why not? What's the limit there? We know of things that can fly with their front limbs and can walk on hind limbs, and horses have both of those.
So do you think a horse could...
They might be limited by their bone density. I have no idea.
Well, so far they've been able to get horses slightly faster, but they get problems when they, just like with any farm type animals is the best, because that's where all the selective breeding is done today, most of it. They get cows that give more milk, cows that give more beef. Okay.
And they look totally different from their wild counterparts.
Well, no, in the wild it never happens. In nature, in the laboratory, you can maybe make it go a little further. Take the cow as an example. There are cows that give more milk. I saw one that gives 100 pounds of milk every day. Illinois that year had the record holder for the cow that gives the most milk. It was in Kankakee, Illinois, at a farm. So I took my students to see it.
Those are the features we're selecting for, though, so we're not going to see other changes. We're throwing out the changes we don't want.
I agree. I think you're finally starting to see it. It's man doing this, and he always runs into a stone wall. You can't get too far. There's a limit to the changes, and it's still recognizable as the same kind, and it's less strong as the wild counterpart. Left in the wild, most of the modern cows would all die. They couldn't hold up.
The limit to the changes is if you can survive. So there's a lot of variance in every population, and populations will move towards one direction in that variance. And repeated over millions of years, that you're going to get a new population that has different features.
That's what you believe. I'd like to see, where's this observable? Science is something we can observe. Where is a new population that has been observed to come in recorded human history? They've been watching cows or pigs or sheep for a long time. Is there anything besides the fossils, which again you couldn't prove had any children that lived? Certainly you couldn't prove they had. Why could the fossil have children that were different when no animal today can have children that are different? Why can the bones do it and the ones today can't do it? What happened?
You can. There's an astounding diversity in all the children of every population. And we observe the formation of new traits in the same population. So that's what we're saying. You're not going to get a non-cow from a cow. You're going to get a cow with a new trait, whether it's just something that's bigger in their body or shorter, or whether it's a new mutation. But we've observed both happening in the wild and in the lab.
So do you believe that a cow came from something like a bacteria or an amoeba, a single-celled creature, 600 million years ago, and did that single-celled creature, that amoeba or whatever one you want to use, did it turn into a cow? And so it certainly gained a whole lot of new traits that amoeba don't have. I don't think amoeba have udders or horns or bones. So how did it get these new traits to go from an amoeba to a cow? And where's the evidence of that?
Well, amoebas have most of the same genetic material. So an udder, there's not just a gene for an udder. It tells the cells to grow in a certain way and then differentiate in a certain way. And a gene from any amoeba could probably do that. It's just a regulatory gene.
So the amoeba could turn into a cow over 600 million years on its own in the wild, even though amoeba are still having babies today and they're called amoeba.
More like a couple billion years.
Okay, we'll give you 200 trillion years. Why don't we see it happen in the laboratory? Amoeba produce amoeba. No exceptions.
We see these small steps.
Yeah, I know you have a big SpongeBob imagination. You imagine that amoeba can turn into a cow. It's just not that simple, Taylor.
We imagine it, we put it to the test, it makes predictions, and then we observe the steps in the lab. And just because there are gaps in the steps, you're inserting your God of the gaps, and that's not science.
No. Put it to the test. I'll give you all the time you want to change an amoeba into anything non-amoeba. How long have they been doing research in the laboratory trying to cause mutations in different, and of course single-celled organisms sometimes have a 20-minute generation time. That's the ideal place to test it, because you could condense the equivalent of tens of thousands of years into one human lifespan.
That's not how evolution works. So when we've observed multicellularity, it's still an algae. It's an algae when it was unicellular, and it's still an algae when it's multicellular, even though it has differentiated tissues.
Well, you're calling it multicellular. Is it actually a colony, or is it actually something that has maybe a group of people can get together and one decides they're going to raise the food, another one's going to be the policeman, somebody else is going to mow the grass. You can have a community of people cooperating together, but they're still each individual people. They may have the ability to do all the different jobs of the community because they've specialized in one. Like the plumber doesn't know how to do electric. He can do plumbing, but he's still a human being. Are these algae ever becoming what anybody would consider a single organism, or is it just a colony that is species diversification where some specialize in one feature or another? Algae.
1 minute, gentlemen. We've already given 3 extra minutes to this back and forth because you guys were enjoying it so much. So 1 minute left.
Yeah, I mean, we've observed both. So we observed going from unicellular to colonial, and then from colonial to colonial with the exact same cell number and type, to colonial with differentiated cell types, and to colonial with fully different cell types inside the organism in a different location than all the rest of the somatic cells. So we have 6 different steps. So your God wants us to think that things evolved.
No, you've proven my point. You've said a colony every time. All you have is a colony of cells. Sometimes they specialize. One becomes the plumber, one becomes the electrician, but they're still individuals. So it's a colony, not an organism. There's a vast difference.
No, because the individual cells cannot survive on their own. They're dependent on each other.
That's our time, gentlemen, for the 20-minute discussion. You guys were at it so much and enjoyed it so much, we gave you an extra 3 minutes going there. So we have